We're very fortunate to have Vanessa as a visiting scholar here at DPA. She, as the flyer said, is a tutor in politics at the University of Papua New Guinea. And I will go with that. That's only Colin Wiltshire. I don't know why he's doing it. And Vanessa has had a long-standing contact with our department, and in particular on knowledge, how helpful she's been for us and our work. We had a field school last year where we took students from here and we went to Papua New Guinea for a few weeks. And we took them to the University of Papua New Guinea, and then Vanessa was the one who set up the mentoring relationship or the friendship relationship with students at the University of Papua New Guinea, which was really lovely. She's also helped me personally with a survey that we did last year on crime and safety in Papua New Guinea. She was instrumental in organising the NCD, the real good component of that research, did an amazing job. And she has also and continues to help us with the National Service Delivery Trends Assessment Project, that monster project. Vanessa managed to put us in touch with some really superb graduates of the University of Papua New Guinea, and they're currently in the field helping us amazingly well in a number of the provinces. And one of them in particular, I had the opportunity to get to know quite well recently in the Western Highlands. Amazing. So thank you to all of you for coming along today. I won't say anything more because I know Vanessa was really keen to give her presentation. I will add one more thing though. What's more has impressed me about Vanessa's work is that she's done it off her own bat, her own instigation, self-funded. I know she did some research on the family and sexual violence units, which are the specialist police units in Papua New Guinea that assist many victims of family and sexual violence. And she helped Sabrata actually when he was over there last year doing his PhD fieldwork by putting him in contact with her mum, and I'll leave it up to her to describe why that happened. And this current piece of research that she's going to be talking about again was something that she did herself, organised herself without any funding, without any institutional assistance. So I think it shows her dedication to do research on a topic that many people would run 1,000 miles from. It's a very, very sensitive and difficult subject. So I think it's really impressive.
Thank you, Judy.
Do you want questions while you're presenting or
at the end?
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Judy, for the introduction. I was hoping it to be a short one, but yeah, I was surprised that it's very long. So thank you. And also I'd like to take this time to say thank you to the Department of Pacific Affairs for this opportunity to be here as a visiting fellow. I have indeed learned so much from Judy, especially one area of my, for myself is in terms of research writing. That's an area that I always wanted to improve on. And yeah, I'm so thankful to work with the expert here, which I've learned so much from. So yeah, thank you to DPA for this opportunity. Not only that, I also met a lot of people, which I am grateful of, and also introduced to other opportunities here. So for that, thank you so much. And also thank you to every one of you for making time to come and sit in for my presentation. I hope I do not bore you out. So yeah, so I'll start. So as you can see, it's actually a small scale research on youth perception in Port Moresby, which is the capital city of Papua New Guinea. So just trying to understand what they think on the best possible approaches to addressing IPV at the community level. So this particular code, I heard about in 2023 when I was doing my internship with the delegation of the European Union to Papua New Guinea. And I attended one of these conferences where one of the speakers mentioned that. And from there, I just, realized how important it is to focus on the youth, especially on this issue of intimate partner violence and GBV more broadly. So, and also whilst working at the university, I work with young people. I mean, I am young, but like the very young people, I've also realized that how they could also be agents of change wherever they are, and how we as their mentors in that space could like help them, educate them to be well informed on this issue, so that when they go out or wherever they are, they could possibly like do some changes in the capacity. So as much as possible, I always center the MRPs or major projects on this issue, so that as much as possible they read and they educate themselves on this issue and find out like opportunities on how they could like contribute and then present to class on that. So that's these are the reasons that led me to conduct this small scale research, which was self-funded and voluntary as well. All right, so moving forward to this present slide mentions about the definition of intimate partner violence. And so on the whole, intimate partner violence is any behavior by a current or former partner, intimate partner, that causes physical, sexual, or psychological harm to the other person within the relationship. And the relationship could include marriages, cohabitation, or even dating. And it's important to also note that it is a violation of human rights. And I would also like to stress that anyone can be a victim of IPV or gender-based violence. However, women and girls are mostly the ones that are at risk and are greatly affected by it. So this is a slide that presents the statistics globally. So as you can see from UN Women, around 736 million women, that is almost 1 in 3, have been subjected to intimate partner violence once in their lifetime. So the second tree on the next 3 points here presents the statistics on in the Pacific region. So 68% of women in the Pacific have experienced physical or sexual violence from intimate partner at some point in their lives. And also, 30% in, according to the regions, 30%, which is in Melanesia, is the highest. So 19%, Polynesia has the lowest number or percentage of IPVs, according to this source here. Okay, so moving forward to Papua New Guinea. So the statistics, as you can see, is very high and concerning on IPV that is prevalent in most parts of Papua New Guinea, and mainly women and girls are victims of this violence. So because of that, this slide shows briefly on what the reforms or what the government has been doing, as well as NGOs, on how to address this. So importantly is the bullet point number 4, the national strategy to prevent and respond to GBV. So at the end of this year, it would be to see whether it has been effective or not. And according to media releases and other sources, it has not been effective. There's a lot of reasons. Lack of funding, lack of coordination is also one, and other reasons that has shown or proved that this particular strategy hasn't been effective. So apart from what the government is doing, the NGOs have also been very supportive in this area, specifically to provide support services to victims, such as safe houses or safe accommodation and spaces, and counseling for psychological trauma, as well as assistance with legal advice, especially to victims who are not really educated and do not understand the legal processes in place. So from reviewing these 2 important documents, the National Strategy to Prevent GBV and the National Capital District Commission strategy to end GBV in Port Moresby. Though there were a lot mentioned about what the government is doing and NGOs have been doing as well. From my reading or review, I noticed that there was no clear mention on how clear mention of community approach in those two key documents, and how the role of community leaders, which most times is not mentioned or captured, has also not been mentioned. And I, for one, I believe that they are a very key untapped resources in the community that could bring about local change. So that's where I believe my small scale research could contribute to the literature in this area. Okay, so on with my research. So this is the main research question. What are the possible approaches perceived by youths to prevent and address IPV at the local level? So basically why I had this as the main research question was to gather what they think about this issue, because according to UNFPA, 60% of the population in Papua New Guinea is made up of youths below the age of 25, yes. So that's like, and we all know that the future of a country depends on the younger generation, right? So I just wanted to see their understanding on this issue, their attitudes, what they think about it. So there's just like a general perception that I wanted to understand from this group of the population. So the research aims, first of all, like I mentioned, it is just a general to investigate youth's general perception of violence in an intimate relationship, whether they think it's right or it's wrong, why they say that, and the awareness of the Family Protection Act, which is the main legislation on this issue in the country. So I think that as long as they know that there is a law in place, or they understand that there's a law on this issue that could influence how they think and also lead to how they behave in their relationships when they happen to be in one, or when they get married, or basically like relate to each other in wherever they are. So yeah, and then the third research aim was on trying to investigate the awareness on the existence of the Family and Sexual Violence Unit, because there's a lot of research data that shows that not a lot of people know that there are existing services for GBV victims or IPV. So I wanted to see if the youths knew at least one service that was available, which is the first service that if a victim needs legal assistance, Family and Sexual Violence unit located in the police stations is the first place that like they run to or go to. So the Family and Sexual Violence Unit provides emergency health services, trauma counseling, and safe accommodation, and case management services for victims who are mainly children and women. All right, so methodology. So it was a voluntary project, self-funded, conducted in 2023. So 3 research assistants were engaged. So they were very well known in the community. One was the youth leader. The other one, he claimed that he was the leader of the youths in the community. And the other one was also familiar with groups of people in the community. So they were part of the research to go out and for us to talk to the people. So convenience sampling was used in this research, where participants were selected based on their availability and proximity close to where we were. So, and whoever was available participated. So the research focused or relied on semi-structured interviews as well as questionnaires. So questionnaires were made available to those who wanted to participate but could not do so at that exact moment. So we handed them out the questionnaires, which was collected later by one of the assistants, RAs. So 250 participants between ages of 16 to 26 years old were involved. So some of you might be wondering where was there any ethical consideration taken into account when interviewing youths who were younger than 16? My justification was, so initially I didn't want to include that age group because of the ethics involved. However, like literally, they expressed the interest to participate in the research, as well as they, like at one point, they actually forced me to, like sit down and talk with them. So that's how I said, okay, if you guys want to participate, then I can allow that. So, and also the other thing, the questions were not really sensitive. Like I mentioned, it was just to understand the general understanding on what they think of IPV in the relationship. Is it right? Is it wrong? Why do they say that? Are they aware of the laws, the services, health, and what they think should be done about this? So yeah, that's my justification. I hope that is justified. Yeah, and most of the participants were local residents, as well as some came from other provinces and have resided in Port Moresby. And yes, the participants were students, employed, unemployed, and self-employed young people as well. So one limitation is the study focused only in youths living in urban settings. So if a similar research was conducted in the rural area, there might be different findings to the research aims and the research question and the aims. Okay, so this slideshow is in relation to the aim number 1. So the youth's general perception of intimate partner violence. So when we ask them, do you think, is it okay for a husband to, inflict harm on his partner or wife? Majority of them mentioned no, which I myself, I was, quite impressed, or, I was happy as well. And based on the reason, like I was also impressed that most of the reasons that they gave on why they said no was because it was against the laws, 1, and 2, because they thought that both men and women are equal and should not be hurting each other in the relationship. So that I saw as a positive indication among the younger generation on this issue. So I thought, do you call it biased response? Like, sometimes when we ask questions like this, they might be responding no, because, I am a woman standing in front of them and asking them this question. So I first of all asked them if they're, if they're Christians, or, like they go to church, or if they've been to the village, or they're familiar with the cultural values and practices. So I more or less try to rephrase the question, considering these, values of Christian values. Like example, I would ask. So I asked these 3 young participants. So in the event that, like the Bible says that we women are supposed to, like submit to men. So in the event that she does not do that, do you think it's, like justified for the husband to hurt his wife? And then one said, oh yes. And then the other two got up, looked at him and said, what did our Sunday school teacher say about violence? So and then he said, oh yeah. And then so, like they changed their response. But after, rephrasing or restructuring the questions, I still got the same response, like regardless that no, it was inappropriate and it was against the law to do so. Okay, so the second, this slide is in relation to aim number 2, the awareness of Family Protection Act. So majority of them know about it. They've read about it. They've talked about it in the schools and the workplaces, and the others did not know about it. But at the end of the research, we also made it our business to also educate these ones that did not know about these laws, that, like there's a law in place you need to read about it and educate yourself as someone who is a citizen of this country. So I can 100% say that at the end of these interviews, the whole 250 respondents were aware that there's a law in place. So this part of the findings, I discussed this as a blog, and it's out on development policy as a blog with on development policy website. So this also shows that they were aware of the Family and Sexual Violence Unit, and importantly, they shared that it's a unit that's not only for women, but also for both men and women who are victims of intimate partner violence or gender-based violence. So yeah, and it was actually a positive indication for me that at least the younger generation are aware of which service is the first place that they visit to seek legal assistance on this issue. Is there something? Okay, so this part, sorry, it's just too much information, but I just wanted to put it out as the findings from the research. This is in relation to the main research question, the responses on how to address or prevent intimate partner violence at the community level. So majority, so this in the next slide, with the assistance of Judy, we were able to categorize them into preventative approaches and intervention approaches. So I will talk about that now. Okay, so the first intervention approach here is to report for the victims, to report the issue or the case or the problems to the Family and Sexual Violence Unit. So on the reason that they believe that it's better to do that, so the violence can stop, especially if the relationship there's a lot of violence in the relationship, one, or the victim has experienced serious injury. Number three, they are very, very unsafe all the time with their partner. And lastly, if they wish to end the relationship. So they could report it to the police, and then the police could intervene and hold the perpetrators accountable. So what the main reason is to report the case or the issue so that the perpetrators could be held accountable. Mostly when it's solved at the community level or family level, like the families and the communities always and most times encourage the two parties to apologize and then live together as if nothing happened. So they've made emphasis on why it's important to report it so that the perpetrators can be held accountable and hopefully do not repeat that violent practice or act. And the role of families also to intervene. So on this, the majority of the youths that were over 20, 18 and over, mentioned that especially when there are children involved in the relationship, families could come together and mediate and talk and see which better solution is appropriate. And also if the victim does not want to take it to, wants to report it to the police or take legal action against the perpetrator, because she mostly if she's unemployed and cannot support the family on her own, then the best intervention approach will be the extended family members of two parties coming together and mediating the conflict in the relationship. And moving on, the role of community leaders and the role of church ministers as well. So community leaders, from where I come from or the way I see it in my community, are people who are always available, who takes initiatives to, enhance peace and stability or collaboration in the community, are also regarded as community leaders. They could also be church ministers in some communities. Church ministers are seen as community leaders as well. And yeah, if you're very educated as well, to some extent, you can, like the community can look up to you as a leader. And if you have, significant amount of wealth, you have a lot of cars and business in the community, you will also be regarded as a community leader. So that's my definition of a community leader. Yeah, so their role in the intervention approach is to, especially when it's after hours and the victims, like there's a violent, the victim is hurt and then runs out of the house. And if she doesn't have family members in the same community, the first place that she or he might run to is the community leader's home or residence. So from there, the community leader can, if it's very, very late, like 2, 1 a.m. in the morning, they usually house them, and then the next day they assist them to seek services or help, take them to the police station or the hospital. And yeah, and that's also the same with the role of churches and church ministers and pastors. So they provide protection to victims when formal services are unavailable or inaccessible in that community. And the preventative approaches to intimate partner preventing intimate partner violence at the local level, community awareness. So mostly the respondents mentioned that there should be more awareness, but with a specific focus on the community leaders and the elderly population, because it's, most times these groups of people are very conservative in how they, deal with this issue, the advices that they give to young people or couples. So they've mentioned that it's better to have awarenesses on IPV prevention education to help deconstruct the minds of these conservative groups of people in the society. And some students in the research expressed that, like they face that dilemma that when they go to school, conversations in the classrooms or on the school premises are about, IPV or GBV is inappropriate, you shouldn't be doing this, there's laws in place, all that. And then when they come home, they see it as a norm in the community or around them. So that's why they made a mention on how it's important to have awareness specifically on these groups of people. And sorry, the role of families. They've mentioned that families should also take ownership and start educating and training their children on important values, such as mutual respect in a relationship or with anyone. What else? Communication in the relationship. So most of the older youths have mentioned that most times they see that issues arise in the relationship because of just miscommunication or poor communication between, the man and the women, and then it results in, violence or abuse. So they've mentioned that it is important for families to be educating their children on such important values. And lastly, another important value was on violence being not the only violence not the solution to addressing any relationship issues. So that should be taught to children at a young age as well. And the role of churches and church ministers and pastors also to provide counseling and advice to couples, especially in terms. So most of the youth, they think that because all of the churches in Papua New Guinea, in Port Moresby, they have, like the pastors or the church ministers, most of them have good, successful relationships with their wives or their husbands. So they suggested that it's better to go to them for advice on counseling on relationship and how to have a good, good and long-lasting relationship. And another concern that may arise on this is, the advices or the advice or the talks that they give to the young people. Most of these, like families, church ministers and pastors, they might be conservative. So there's a challenge also that they might be, really relaying or passing on conservative values and thoughts, knowledge on to the younger generation or the younger couples. Finally, So in conclusion, from the research, so yeah, community awareness, specifically on IPV prevention education, is important and should continue. Like there's ongoing, and there's awareness happening in all communities, but it's important, especially in the community. Like there's different groups of community. I mean, there's different community groups and networks. So it would be better to have awarenesses specifically on on the different groups that could provide that opportunity for others also who are usually not vocal in when everyone gets together to share also what they think on this issue or the possible ways forward and other thoughts. And yeah, majority of the youth-specific violence in relationship is illegal. Yeah, that was a very positive indication for myself. And yes, I'm hopeful to do other research, similar research. Hopefully this time it's funded in other urban centers. And hopeful to see a similar result. And yes, having inclusive gender sensitized workshop to be organized to train and educate community leaders, because they are often an untapped resource. So inclusive workshop in the sense that you have separate workshops or trainings for men and women. So especially for women, they are given that opportunity or avenue to share their thoughts and discuss issues, concerns, or knowledge on this issue that sometimes might be difficult or sensitive to discuss with men when they are all together. So though it's a small-scale research study, I hope that it can serve as a baseline for future researchers in this area, targeting the community groups that were highlighted, or that have emerged from this study. Thank you.